Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Players Club. I'm your host, Levi the Heartbreak Kid Valentine at Levi_Valentine on Twitter. Joining me are my co-hosts, Brent Hud Heikes. Follow him at Brent Heikes, Heikes on Twitter, and Trevin the Baby Maker Cremosta, whose tweets are too hot for your eyes. Fellas, welcome back for another week. We're gonna kick it off with a big announcement from Brent. Brent, share it with us.
All right. Well, this will be my last show. Just gonna step away. Things are busy. Kids are in sports, um, and Wednesday nights are really my only day off from like sports and all that stuff. So I'm gonna spend more time with the family on Wednesday nights. But I mean, definitely, I'm still gonna be a club member, fantasy players club member. And if you ever need a guest, I'd love to come on. And who knows? And if you guys want a third person, maybe in the off season next year when things kind of die down, let me know. I'd love to come back on. So love talking football. I'm still gonna watch football all the time. So I don't know. Just taking a break.
I can already tell you when this baby comes for the baby maker in December, I'm gonna be twisting your arm to come back on the show and help fill in because I imagine
Yeah.
he's gonna need some time off to recover from all those sleepless nights he's looking forward to. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, I'll be prepared.
Yep, we're gonna miss you, Brent. You're always welcome back.
And the clubbies are gonna miss you too. Greg says, "I'll miss you, Brent Hud Hikes."
I'll still be putting my input on Twitter, guys, if you want to follow me, and you can get my expert picks all the time. So
Yep. And you're still going to be running our DraftKings league, so
Yeah.
everybody can look forward to that. If they haven't already participated last year, hop in this year, and we'll touch on that a little more later. But Brent, I understand why you're making this decision. It is sad that we've had this last year, almost year and a half together, and now you got to step away a little bit. But I get it, and you got to do what's best for you, and you are welcome back anytime. So
Awesome.
Thank you for taking the sleep with me because I don't think I would have done it without you.
Yeah, it's when you asked me a year and a half ago, and I was like, "Is this guy crazy?" I never met him in person until this weekend, actually. So I was like, "All right, I'll give it a shot." And Levi was pretty serious about it, and kind of got me serious about it. So it was a pretty fun year and a half. I mean, I'm definitely gonna miss it. I'll be watching you guys. You guys will have a new listener, that's for sure. So.
Do you just confirm that you don't listen to the episodes, Brett?
Why would I listen when I go through it all the time? I mean, why would I listen again?
Got to get our numbers up, baby.
Well,
And
now you're gonna get your numbers up.
It's like reviewing game tape.
Yeah. Brett, I think I figured out the real reason you're leaving, though. This is our 68th episode if you don't count the initial intro one we did.
Yeah.
So you didn't want to stick around for 69.
Sure. You got me. You got me, man.
All right. Well, let's make it your last one. Go out on a high note, Brent. So let's hop into the main event. For tonight's main event, we have a couple of rounds here. Trevin's kicking us off this first round, though, with redraft strategy. Trevin, you did some research and you had a whole spreadsheet here, so fill us in.
Yeah, eat your heart out, FF Spaceman. I made a spreadsheet. Took me quite a while put this thing together because I haven't been doing as good in redraft as I was in the years past. So I wanted to look at my own strategy that I'd been using for years and see if it was still the way to go. So what I've always done is it's a one quarterback redraft league. So I've always waited on quarterback. I've always said it didn't matter when you could get it because there's no real way to tell who's going to finish at the top. And you might as well pick the 8th quarterback off the board, and he has just as good a chance of finishing at the top. So what has changed in these last couple of years, from what I can tell from the spreadsheet I put together, is rushing touchdowns from quarterbacks. And so that was on my mind, so I put this together, and it kind of confirmed what I thought. These last 2 years, if you're a running quarterback, you have a much better chance of finishing in the top 4 if you can get rushing touchdowns. So with that, I went early on quarterbacks this year and got guys that I think are going to continue to get rushing touchdowns. So if you can also, I think it's going to be more easy to tell who's going to finish at the top with the rushing touchdown ability. But also they have changed The difference between the top 4 quarterbacks and the bottom end of the quarterback ones has also been a wider gap. So I think it's easier to tell who's going to finish at the top, and also it's a wider gap between the top and the bottom. So that's what I did to change my redraft strategy on my 1 quarterback league.
And for those of us joining us on the live stream here, I'm actually sharing the spreadsheet that Trevin put together so you all can see it. But Trevin, one question I initially had after looking at this, I think what you did makes a lot of sense, and it's very helpful to see the data that goes along with this. But how do you think about the opportunity cost of drafting those higher quarterbacks versus, getting another player there, whereas in the past maybe you got a little better running back 2 or receiver 2 or something like that, and now you're looking at taking a quarterback there instead?
That's the other thing I thought about. I didn't have time to put that together to match my thoughts on it, so I just had to go with this from this spreadsheet. But my other thought is, I think it's more clear also who's going to be 3-down running backs. I don't think it's quite as advantageous to get that running back 2 in a redraft league, because that's going to be kind of up in the air, and I think that's where that dead zone is they're talking about. So I wanted to get one of the top end running backs and then get another running back late, because I don't think it's worth spending that second round on a running back anymore when it's so variable who's going to be up there, and also there's not as near as many bell cow backs. So I think that second or third round's a great time to now switch to getting one of these quarterbacks that also have rushing touchdowns. So a little bit more on this. From 2012 to 2018, the difference between the top 4 quarterbacks and the 9 to 12 quarterbacks, it really stayed really consistent, as around 60 points was the difference. 2012, 63 points, 2018, 61 points. And it really stayed right in that range until 2019. The difference was 85 points. In 2020, the difference was 81 points. And that goes right along with the amount of running touchdowns scored by quarterbacks those 2 years. It really hovered around similar ranges before 2019. The top 4 quarterbacks scored 18 rushing touchdowns. In 2020, the top 4 quarterbacks scored 24 rushing touchdowns. That was way past anything we've seen in the past 10 years or past 9 years I've got on this.
So how early would you be comfortable taking a quarterback if you're trying to get one of these top 4?
Wherever it takes to get my quarterbacks I was wanting was Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. Not really. We talked about him. I was a little scared off of him with the COVID stuff this year, but also Josh Allen, and really Mahomes you can take anywhere. He's the one guy that it doesn't really matter that he doesn't score rushing touchdowns to me. But anybody, I wanted one of those guys. I didn't want to. The passing touchdowns you can see from this list, they're just so variable. Even the best guys, it's just every other year you don't really know where they're going to finish for passing touchdowns.
What about the quarterbacks who have rushing upside but are going outside the top 4?
That's would probably be a fine strategy. I didn't account for rushing yards in this and overall rushing stats. Just looking at rushing touchdowns. So like Tannehill, of course, had a big number last year, but still finished he had 7 rushing touchdowns, still finished as quarterback. I should have numbered this 6 or 7. Also Lamar Jackson, of course, had his down year last year, would finish with 7 rushing touchdowns. But I wanted to target one of those guys that I listed, because I just wanted to. I thought those offered the best chance to finish in that top 4, where there is getting to be more of a gap between them and the bottom half of quarterback ones.
Yeah. I think it's just hard still, because even when you think you've identified one of those quarterbacks who's going to finish top 4 or whatever, like last year, probably a lot of people took Lamar Jackson as one of the top quarterbacks off the board, because coming off that 2019 MVP season, and based on your list here, he had 90 points more than Deshaun Watson, who finished as quarterback too. But then he has a little bit of a down year, despite maintaining that rushing success, particularly, with the touchdowns. His rushing touchdowns each year were the same, and his finishes, 5, 6, 8, like in that 8 to 10 range instead of top 4. So I think that's kind of where I think it's still a little tricky for me.
Yep, and that'd be fine. You still got to hit the right guy, and there's a lot of luck involved. I wasn't going to not have one of those guys this year, I guess.
Yeah, I think certainly the league is moving towards these rushing quarterbacks, and if you're going to win in fantasy, you probably need one of them. It's just trying to figure out which guy is going to be that guy this year.
One quick thing I put together was the amount of quarterbacks who scored more than 5 rushing touchdowns. Between 2012 to 2014, it was only Cam Newton every year. He was the only one to do it. 2015, there were two guys, Cam Newton again, and also Jameis Winston actually had 6 rushing touchdowns his rookie year, or maybe second year. 2016, there's only 2 guys. 2017, 2 guys. 2018, there's 0 guys that finished with more than 5 rushing touchdowns. And then 2019, there were 3. And 2020, there were 4.
Yep. Brent, what were your thoughts when you saw this?
First of all, I was pretty impressed with the spreadsheet, Trevin. So nice job there. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on a guy like Dak Prescott, Herbert, Russell Wilson. I mean, they can run the ball, but I don't know if they really look to do that much. So, are you considering those guys at all?
I wanted to try something new this year. So the reason I wasn't was because just when you're looking at strictly passing touchdowns, it's so variable. Like Rodgers last year had 48. The year before he had 26. The year before that, 25. Even Mahomes, who's maybe the best passer we've ever seen, had 38 last year. The year before, he was down to 26. The year before that, he's up to 50. So I didn't want to stick around with passing touchdowns. Just looking at this list, I know it's not the most complicated thing in the world, but I just didn't want to get to this variable passing touchdowns. I'm sure they're going to finish fine for fantasy stats, but I just wanted to go with these rushing touchdown guys.
You like Jalen Hurts this year?
He's the one guy that I would probably, if one of those guys did slip through my cracks, I slipped through my fingers on filling this, my redraft leagues this year, that was going to be the guy I targeted. The thing that scares me is we've talked about him before, but Eagles don't seem super committed to him. They brought Minshew in, so I'd be worried about him getting a starting spot taken away at some point this year. But he seems to be able to get the rushing touchdowns, that's for sure.
Well, one more question for you, and Levi, you can answer this too. And I was reading up on this strategy. What are your thoughts on getting like Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance and a quarterback like Ryan Fitzpatrick? I think a guy like Trey Lance has some really big upside, especially running the ball. And you can say the same thing for Dalton and Justin Fields.
Yeah, so that was the 2 guys I was targeting late in my 2 redraft leagues was Fields and Lance, because I figured they would go in the later, very last rounds in both cases, and they have that upside to get those rushing touchdowns this year.
Nice.
So if one of these guys did slip through my fingers, my strategy was going to be take Hurts and take one of Fields and Lance in the last round too.
Yeah, and I guess
I didn't share this with the show until now because I think most of the people in the redraft league do listen to this show, so I wanted to keep it to myself until now.
It's
cool.
Interesting that you don't mention Trevor Lawrence as one of the quarterbacks with some rushing upside. I know in college he wasn't like a prolific rusher, but he did have, I think, a few hundred yards. I'm trying to pull it up quick, but he is a mobile quarterback, certainly, and that's one of the things I think is appealing about him. So what separates those other 2 from him in your eyes?
Just the later draft capital is all. I just didn't – I wasn't going to depend on Trevor Lawrence using this strategy, so I was going to take Hurts and then one of the other 2 just because they were very last-round picks.
And with that, there's still question marks with Lance and Justin Fields. I mean, when are they going to start? You still have that question. Yep. We know with Trevor Lawrence, he's going to start right away. And yeah, I do agree. He has definitely some good rushing ability too, especially with Urban Meyer at head coach. He'll sprinkle it in.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting, Trevor. I think now that you're a stat nerd, you can probably build on this and bring us some more data in the future that supports your theory here or disproves it, perhaps.
I won't do that for sure, but maybe something to build on it.
Your confirmation bias is in place now.
I was happy to see that this kind of went with my thinking. I'll tell you that. It took me a little while to build this thing out, and I would have been pretty disappointed if it didn't at least point to what I was thinking about.
Yep. I think, to finish this quarterback one, it's almost impossible these days without being able to run. And you look at what Aaron Rodgers did last season as, 48 touchdowns, I think he said he had, passing.
Yep.
And just insane numbers as far as across the board, but he still finished as quarterback 4 on the year behind 3 quarterbacks who ran a little more in Murray, Allen, and Mahomes. So it's tough to get to the top if you're not going to be running at least a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Can I tell you the weirdest stats I have found when building this thing out?
Absolutely.
Blake Bortles in 2015 finished as quarterback 4 and had 35 passing touchdowns and 2 running touchdowns.
Yep.
Really shocked me. I didn't remember having that good a fantasy year. And then the other
garbage time with him.
That might have been the year they made the AFC title game.
What year was it? I'll look it up.
2015. The other weird one I found when doing this is Jameis Winston's only finished in the top 14 twice in his career. I know it's only been since 2014, but even myself included with the Saints this year, I'm like, oh, Winston's going to get in there and sling it around and put up some big numbers. But he finished 14 in 2015 and then had his big year and finished number 4 in 2019.
Yeah, it was really just the one year that he was.
Yeah, he barely made the top 14 that first year. So he's had 1 year finishing as quarterback 1.
You said for Bortles it was 2015?
2015 was his big year, yeah.
So in 2015, the Jacksonville Jaguars were 5-11.
Oh man! So it must have been 2016 that they made the AFC title game. No big deal.
Yep. He was notorious for what Brent's talking about. I think 16 was they were 3-13, so it must have been 17. Let's see. Yeah, 17 they went 10-6. That must have been the year.
I think when they got Fournette, they kind of played pretty conservative and tried not to let Bortles screw it up.
We've also learned he's pretty terrible at following NFL protocols.
Yep. Speaking of divisional and seasonal results, we're going to do little season predictions here. But before we get to that, we want to talk about what we're watching for in week 1. So, Trevin, start us off. I think you have this one by your favorite quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, things I'm excited to watch for in week 1. First one is Darnold playing his old team, the Jets. This is we'll see if that Gase was his old issue now. I don't think it was. I think Darnold's a very bad quarterback, but it would be funny if we get to see right away and he just lights his old team up and it was Gase the whole time. So that's going to be funny either way, I think.
Yeah. Have you considered the revenge game factor here against the Jets?
Oh, I considered it. I don't think it's going to happen, but it'd be hilarious if the Darnold lights him up for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and also be hilarious if he has 50 yards and 4 interceptions. So I think we're in for a fun game there.
I wish Gase was still the coach. It'd be a lot more fun watching Darnold play against Gase than it is against this new staff.
Yeah. Second thing I'm looking forward to is Saquon Barkley playing at the Broncos. It hasn't been really revealed yet. Sounds like they're being pretty conservative with him. He got hurt early last year. He had his surgery a little bit after that. So we're ready to see how hard they're going to use him.
Yeah. I'm glad he's looking like he's going to play because it looked like there for a while like he might not play at all week 1 and come back later. So I'm excited to see him back, and one of the NFL's most talented players coming back is certainly a positive anytime we get to see that. Brent, your thoughts?
I'm excited for it too. I mean, it wasn't looking good, but maybe he'll be on a snap count or a carry count. But I mean, if he gets 15 carries, I think he can do some damage with those 15 carries.
Yeah,
do you guys remember
I think you have to start him if you have him on your team.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys remember that first? So he got hurt in week 2. Do you remember how that first week 1 went for him?
Yes, and we'll get to that later.
Oh.
Well, you go ahead. I'm going to reiterate this related point later, but go ahead and talk about his week 1.
Oh, gotcha. Just in my head, I always remember getting hurt early, but I forgot how disastrous his week 1 was. He had 15 rushing attempts for 6 yards playing the Steelers in week 1 last year.
Yeah, rough.
So it's been 2 years since we've seen him have a good game.
His week 2 was a little better, I believe, but
yeah, he did 4 carries for 28 yards before he got injured week 2.
About receiving wise.
That was actually week 1. His receiving wasn't too bad week 1. He had 6 catches for 60 yards.
Okay. Okay.
Next thing I'm looking forward to is the Dolphins. I want to see if they trust Tua more this year. He didn't seem to fit in the offense they had very good last year when they had Fitzgerald there. They kind of put him in and tried to just keep running Fitz's offense. They didn't really seem to let him open it up and trust him to do a whole lot. So I'm ready to see if what they have with Tua. I think they're going to want to find out right away too. Their line looks like complete garbage. That left tackle Austin, there's clips all over Twitter of how bad he's been doing in preseason. So, and I think that he even got hurt or sick now too. So I think that line might be bad. And with these downfield threats they have with Waddle and Fuller, they might not be able to even really give him a chance with that if his line's as bad as it's looking. So I'm excited to see what they have.
I'm excited to see how they involve Waddle. So,
yeah, and the hard thing though will be Fuller is suspended for this Week 1 game, so he won't get the full arsenal of weapons until Week 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was it. That was all the things I had for excited for this week. How about you guys?
I put a few things on here that I'll run through. So one is for the Titans, we have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, which should be a lot of fun to watch this year, but kind of how do they coexist? They have a opening game here against the Cardinals at home, so that'll be a really interesting intra-conference matchup. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those two on the field, and just which we've talked a little bit before about which one we expect to be kind of the alpha wide receiver in that offense, and this will be our first glimpse at it.
Do you think they're both kind of banged up? Are they both supposed to play first week?
Yeah, I believe so. I think A.J. Brown just had a rest day today, and then I think Julio is expected to play as well.
Nice.
Guys like those, they don't need to practice every day.
My next one was which Steelers show up this year. So just looking back at their season last year, it's wild to look at. So they started off 11-0, and we're looking on, pretty good. And then they ended their season losing 5 of their last 6 games, including back-to-back losses to the Browns in Week 17 and in that wild card game. So the wheels really fell off last year. Ben's arm looked like it was not doing the best by the end of the year. So it'll be interesting, I guess, to see if he looks any better this year or if it's still kind of where it was. And then if they can recapture any of that magic they had at the beginning of last year. I
want to see what they do with Najee Harris, too. I haven't been as high on him this year. I think he's going to be a good dynasty asset for the future, but like we've talked about before, they didn't run anything out of they ran everything out of shotgun, so Ben could just catch it and throw the quick passes right away. So to me, that doesn't seem like a team that's going to be able to run the ball very much. The offensive line's still banged up, but maybe I'll be wrong, and Najee Harris will be able to run all over him.
I think a lot depends on Big Ben's health. If he's healthy and his arm is okay, I think the team is a playoff team. If it's not, they're not a very good team at all. But they play the Bills first week. Yep. I don't think they win either way.
Yeah, it's wild looking at their leading rushers from last year. They started off the year okay. Snell had 113 in the first week, and then after that it was Connor 106, Connor 109, McLeod 63, Connor 101, Connor 82. Here are the last. After that, though, here's how it went for the highest rusher on the team: 47, 22, 36, 89, 60, 15, 18, 84, 21, 37, and 37. Pretty rough when you can't run the ball and you just have predictable short passes as your primary threat on offense, and teams were able to shut that down at the end of the year.
Yep.
The next one I picked out, I think we all expect Urban Meyer to fail based on our previous discussions. I, at least, am expecting that, but I'm interested to see just how big of a disaster he's going to be. If they find a way to lose to the Texans in Week 1, which they go to Houston, I think that'll be kind of the bellwether for the rest of the season, because the Texans are maybe close to the worst team in the NFL, if not the worst team, depending on how you view maybe them and the Lions. So if Urban Luke goes out and loses to Houston Week 1, there'll be red flags everywhere.
Yeah, I know. Levi and I have talked about this, and That was the one episode when Trevin was gone. Trevin came back and called us too drunk that night. We were talking up the Jaguars, and
Yeah, I
maybe,
remember that. You're declaring like 9 wins this year for him.
maybe we got a little too drunk that night, and but I've fallen back to earth, and maybe I'm not expecting 9 or 10 wins like I originally thought. So maybe 6 or 7, which is not it's not bad. So I'm not thinking that bad for the Jaguars like you two probably are. So 6 or 7 wins for them, and a win this week.
6-11 isn't that good, especially when you have 2 free wins. What should be 2 free wins against the Texans.
True.
I think they're going to be one of the worst 3 teams. I think it's Texans, Jaguars, and Lions.
Raiders.
Oh. No, for the 3 worst teams in the league. And I don't think Urban Meyer lasts one season. I don't think he's going to like that he doesn't have all the control there, and he's not able to stack talent like he did in college because of the salary cap and everything going on. He's got more bosses to answer to. So I don't think he's going to have a fun time there, and I don't think he's going to last very long.
One season would be wild if that's all it took.
How long was Saban at the Dolphins? I think it was just 1 year.
Maybe a year and a half. I don't know. It was a short stay.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty similar to that.
Saban didn't have the benefit of having a Trevor Lawrence, which I think may have gave him a little hope that he could stick around a little longer.
Yeah, he wanted Breeze. That's why he was his reasoning for not sticking around. I believe the Dolphins training staff didn't clear him medically.
05 to 06, he was with the Dolphins, so a couple of years. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I guess Dante Culpepper didn't do it for him, but maybe Urban will have a little better luck with Trevor Lawrence. The next one, Browns at the Chiefs. I think this could be an AFC Championship preview. You got, I think, one of the best top-to-bottom rosters in the NFL in Cleveland these days. If Brent's boy, Baker Mayfield, can just hold it together, they have a chance to be a really good team. And we saw, I think, their ceiling last year in that wild card game against the Steelers where they just went out and dominated. So I'm really interested to see them. Obviously, the Chiefs are still a great team as well. This game is in Kansas City, I believe. Yeah, so I think I give the edge to the Chiefs, but I'm really excited to see this game. I think it's going to be a really great game.
Should be a good one, I think. And last year's playoff game was a really good one, too. So I'm one of the games that I'm most excited for.
Yep, I agree.
And the last one I had here, Stafford in LA, first game with the Rams. I think that'll be a lot of fun to watch. They play the Bears, so that'll be a pretty good matchup. We'll get to see if Andy Dalton makes it all the way through the first game or if they go ahead and give Justin Fields a shot right away. But I think that the Rams, as we'll get to here in a minute, have a chance to be one of the best teams in the NFL this year with Matthew Stafford, and it'll be interesting to see how they start off and how he distributes the targets to those 3 receivers they have there between Kupp, Woods, and then whoever's going to fill that third slot. So I'm looking forward to that.
I agree. I also think the Rams will be one of the better teams in the NFL. I won't give my Super Bowl pick yet, but they're definitely in the discussion.
Yep.
All right, Brent, anything that you wanted to add to our list there that we didn't mention?
Yeah, another game I'm excited for is the Redskins and the Chargers. I want to see Justin Herbert play against that defensive line and Chase Young. I could see them giving him fits, and I want to see what Herbert can do when he's under pressure like that. So a couple other things from that game I'm excited to see is Diami Brown. I don't know if Curtis Samuel is going to play. Yeah. So Diami Brown might have to step up, but I still think Adam Humphries has a role there, and I think Adam Humphries will be one of the top waiver guys to pick up coming into week 2. Another guy for the Chargers, I want to see who that number 2 wide receiver is. I want to see if it is their rookie wide receiver from Tennessee. His name is
Palmer.
Josh Palmer. I'm excited to see him play. So a couple things in that game that I really want to watch for.
I'm really interested to see that one too. Seeing Herbert against that defense will be a lot of fun, and I think the Chargers defense could be really good this year too, getting Derwin James back and some of the other additions they've had.
Still have Bosa.
Yeah.
So that may be a low-scoring one. It'll be interesting to see how Ryan Fitzpatrick does if he's still got enough to get that team to the playoffs in that arm this year. So it should be fun.
It's a good thing you're leaving the show now, Brent, or else you'd just be canceled for calling them the R words.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. My last show.
We got him, folks. All right. Shall we move on to our season predictions? Trevin, I'm going to let you go first because you added this to the show sheet. So hit us with yours.
Yep. So we're just going to go division picks, wild card picks, and Super Bowl picks. So for the AFC East, I got the Bills. The North, I got the Browns. The South, I think the South is going to be the worst division in football.
Can I make one suggestion? Why don't we go each division and each give our picks for that division and talk about it a little bit?
Okay.
I know you already started. Sorry.
AFC East, I got the Bills. I think they're by far the easy favorite there. So went with the Bills.
Yeah. We all have the Bills. So, yeah, I think that one was pretty easy for me.
Very easy. I didn't even think much about the other three teams. So, very easy.
AFC North, you'll see in a little bit how strong I think this division is, but I have the Browns pulling this one out.
I went with the Browns as well. Like I mentioned, I think it's one of the best rosters in the NFL. And I think the Ravens will give them a run for their money, but the Ravens and that offense's inability to evolve over the past couple of years kind of concerns me, so I'll give the edge to the Browns.
Yeah, it's, again, a really good division. I really like the Bengals as an up-and-coming team. Steelers are going down, I think, with Big Ben. It was between the Browns and the Ravens for me, and I'm going to go with the Ravens because they have the better quarterback. I'm just not a fan of Baker Mayfield.
For the AFC South, I went with the Titans. Like I said, I think this is the worst division in football this year. But they have the Titans. I keep saying the Titans. They have the Texans and the Jags both in there, who might be the two worst teams, and also the Colts. I think are going to be also bad because I don't believe in Wentz even if he's healthy all year. So I think the Titans. I don't think they're going to be a great team, but they'll have enough to easily win this division, I believe.
I picked the Titans as well. I think the Colts are a little better than you do. I think they probably won't go 11-5 like they did last year, but I think they'll be around that 9-win mark and sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. But I like the Titans here to take the division.
I also picked the Titans. They just have too strong of a team, but I disagree with you. This is not the worst team, not even the worst division in the AFC. So
that's mostly on the. I think they might have the two worst teams in the whole NFL. So I think Titans are going to get a lot of easy wins.
I get it. And I definitely think that they have two playoff teams with the Colts and the Titans. But yeah, the Texans are bad. Jaguars are pretty close from being pretty bad too.
So your worst division in the AFC has to be the East then, Brent?
Yeah, probably top to bottom. It's the Bills are easily number one, and I'm not so sure about the others. I guess they have the Dolphins. I don't know. It's pretty close between the AFC East and the NFC South. I like the Dolphins to possibly make the playoffs this year too. So I don't know. It's a toss up, but they're definitely not the worst division in the NFL. That goes to the NFC East.
For my AFC West, a pretty easy pick here. Went with the Chiefs.
That's all you got on that?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a lot of competition for them. The Chargers, there's a lot of talk about the Chargers, but Herbert's still year two, and they'd have to really improve everywhere else, which they might. Derwin James coming back, like we said. But I think that's a lot to ask for, so I think the Chiefs run away with it.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs win this division pretty easily, but I think the Chargers will be good and will be in the hunt for one of those wild card spots. But yeah, give me the Chiefs to win it pretty easily.
Also the Chiefs, but I think the Broncos are about a year away, quarterback away, I should say. So.
For my wild cards, I went with the Ravens and Steelers. I got three coming out of the AFC North into the playoffs, and I also got the Raiders. I think they're going to be better than expected, and I'll be goddamned if they make the playoffs. I didn't pick them to make the playoffs, so I got them sneaking in a wild card spot.
I also went with the Ravens for one of my wild card spots. I went with the Dolphins for the second. This is a team that was 10-6 a year ago, and I think with Tua being in his second year, clearly having the starting job, Ryan Fitzpatrick out of the way, some of the talent they've added as far at receiver there. Obviously, offensive line, like you mentioned, is a concern, Trevin, but hopefully they can get that figured out. And I think if they can repeat that record, they'll sneak into the playoffs. Well, they won't repeat 10-6 because they're 17 games now, but if they can win 10 games, I think they'll make the playoffs. And then I went with the Colts for my last team. I'm not a huge Wentz believer, but again, this is a team that was 11-5 a year ago with Phillip Rivers. I think Wentz could be close enough to that to get them to double-digit wins and sneak in the playoffs. And I will happily pick them over your Raiders homer pick, Trevin. So give me the Colts.
I'm going with the Browns. I think they're a really good team. They very well could win that division. Then I'm going with the Colts. I think they'll still be a good team in that division and maybe do some damage in the playoffs. And this was the toughest pick. I think it's going to be some random team like the Dolphins or the Broncos. But I'm going to go with the Dolphins with this. I think Tua leads them to the playoffs. They'll squeak in.
All right.
Very nice.
NFC.
So my NFC East, I've got the football team. I'm not buying the hype from the HBO show to pick the Cowboys here. I think that'd take a lot of improvement. Even with Dak last year, they were terrible. So I got the football team taking the NFC East.
I went with the Cowboys, as terrible as they were last year, and playing without Dak for a significant portion of the season. They were 6-10, only one game behind Washington. So, yes, they need to improve a lot, but I think having Dak, if he can be healthy for the full season, gives me the benefit of the doubt when it comes to them versus Ryan Fitzpatrick. Obviously, Washington has a far superior defense, and the Cowboys defense may very well be terrible again, but I'll go with the quarterback I have a little more faith in, and that's Dak for me. Brett, you're on mute.
Sorry. I went with the football team on this one. It's going to be – I mean, they'll be better than they were last year. But I think with that defense, and I think they have a better offense this year. I think it'll put them over the top, and they might actually win a playoff game or two this year.
Trevor?
Yep, I agree with Brent there. So for the NFC North, I went with the Packers to repeat as division winners there. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in football. They got Rodgers, find another reason to be angry this year. So I think they're going to run through that division.
Yep, I picked the Packers as well, and I think, they're an easy pick to go to another NFC championship this year and probably lose the NFC championship, but we'll see. It seems to be their MO.
Yeah, easy pick, Packers.
All right. For what do we got next?
NFC South. I think this was an easy one for all of us.
Yep. NFC South went with the Bucs here.
Anytime you can return every starter from a Super Bowl champion, I think that makes it pretty tough to pick against you. So, go Bucs.
Yep. I think the biggest question is what's the record going to be? Is it going to be 16-1, 15-2, 17-0? I don't know. I think it'll be up there.
Make a pick, Brent. What's it going to be?
15-2.
I like it.
Yep. Right. And for my NFC West, I went with the Rams.
I also went with the Rams, adding Matthew Stafford to a really talented team with a really good defense. I think makes them a good pick here in a tough division. It does really suck that they lost Cam Akers, but that offense would have been, I think, potentially one of the best in the NFL. But I still think they have enough even without him to win the division here.
Yeah, I think the Rams will be really good. They're going to give the Bucs all they can handle in the playoffs.
All right. So for my wild card teams, I got 3 teams coming out of the NFC West. In addition to my Rams, I had the 49ers and Seahawks making it. For my long shot, there's always a surprise team in the playoffs. I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons. I think finishing 4-12 last year, I don't really like saying one-score games because every game in the NFL is a one-score game. But man, they lost a lot of close ones last year. So I don't think it's finishing 4-12. It's not that big a leap to have a winning record this year. And I think the Saints are going to take a step back, which should give the Falcons some wins. And I've got the Falcons sneaking in the wild card. And a big year from Pitts.
Jesus, that might be my least favorite of your picks here. Though 4-12 is awful. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year.
They lost to the Cowboys by 1. They lost to the Bears by 4. They lost to somebody else here by 1. Lions by 1. So it won't take much to turn that around. They got Arthur Smith there now and Pitts.
Trevin.
But I had to throw in
quote. I got a quote here for you from the great Bill Parcells. You know what it is? You are what your record says you are. They're 4-12. They're a bad team. They lost those games. I don't care what the score was. You lose 12 games, you're bad. The end.
They had a coach that didn't know how to finish games before. Now they got Arthur Smith.
Oh, yeah. I think they'll be improved, but I don't think they're making the playoffs. I went with the Seahawks, 49ers, and Vikings. I think that's a little more reasonable for the 7-9 Vikings to make a little bit of a leap here and get into the playoffs. So they're my surprise pick, if that's what we're going to call it, Trevin.
Call it whatever you want. You're wrong.
Brent, what do you got?
I have the Seahawks and the 49ers. I think they get in. In my last pick, I actually just made a change just a little bit ago because I was debating on it, and the Cowboys, I have them sneaking into the playoffs. And I just think the thing that's going to get them over the top, I mean, we know their offense will be good, their running game, their passing game, but Randy Gregory, he's going to lead the league in sacks. He's going to be an all-pro. This
isn't our bold prediction episode, Brent. That was last week.
That was fantasy. This doesn't have anything to do with fantasy, but he's going to get a lot of sacks this year. There's going to be a lot of discussion about him being one of the better defensive players in the league. So look out. This is Randy Gregory's year.
How many career sacks does he have?
I don't know. How many games has he played? How many times has he been suspended?
A lot.
Yeah.
I'm pulling for the guy. I hope he is able to overcome some of the challenges he's had in the past. And I think, Brent, what I hear you saying is I was so convincing in my pick of the Cowboys to win the division that I talked you into them making the playoffs.
Kind of. I mean, you kind of reminded me, like, okay, they're good. But then you kind of reminded me, like, oh, yeah, I think Randy Gregory's going to have a heck of a year. So I wanted to bring that up. So
Can I tell you what the Atlanta Falcons score differential was last year?
Nobody cares.
Still can't believe
They're 18th in the NFL for score differential. Only negative 1.1, which is almost tied with Chicago, and Cleveland was actually negative last year, and Washington. Those were some 3 playoff teams, and it's just not even close to the record. The Jets were negative 13. The Jags were negative 12. Detroit was negative 9. Denver was negative 8. So they're closer than you think last year. They're making the jump this year.
They also lost Julio Jones, which I think you're failing to consider your calculus here. And while Kyle Pitts may very well have a good season, he ain't replacing Julio when it comes to this offense.
I'm the stat boy now, so don't be telling me stats.
All right, Trevin, who's your Super Bowl pick here?
My Super Bowl pick is the Bills over the Bucks. I think the Chiefs, while the line everybody says isn't improved, they are all new starters. I don't really like trusting that. They lost some weapons on offense, so I think the Bills are better than the Chiefs this year, and I think they win over the Bucks, who return to the Super Bowl but don't cross the finish line this year.
What weapons did the Chiefs lose on offense?
Don't say Sammy Watkins.
Sammy Watkins. They don't have a second receiver anymore. Well, he's usually hurt. They don't have a second receiver. Right now? Who is their second receiver?
How good was Sammy Watkins?
Last year he was pretty good.
Are you out of your mind?
Go ahead with your picks.
They have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. The third option doesn't really matter anymore. Sammy Watkins had 421 receiving yards.
Now.
How are they going to replace 400 receiving yards? That'll be so difficult. Hopefully they can find somebody to just get on the field and run down and find a soft spot with those other two drawing all the coverage.
Catch passes from Mahomes.
Go ahead with your pick.
That's a rough Rough gig.
Who would you rather have, Watkins or Hartman?
I don't think it matters. Sammy Watkins isn't good, and he wasn't a significant factor in this offense last year. You're out of your mind saying they lost weapons on offense.
No more Le'Veon Bell.
All right. People have turned off the show now. Thanks.
They also lost Darwin Thompson. I mean, he's out of there.
See?
So
You're proving my point.
they may not score a point this year. You heard it here first. All right. My pick for the Super Bowl is the Chiefs over the Rams. Obviously, I'm not concerned about all those weapons that we just talked about that they lost.
You must not have heard what I said about them.
I picked the Rams a little bit of an upset over the Bucks. I think the Rams have a really good team this year. And it's really hard to win a Super Bowl. It's crazy hard to repeat. So give me the Rams to pull a little bit of an upset there, but not quite pull it off in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
I really like the four teams that we're talking about, the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bucks and the Rams. I think those are the final four, the two teams that will play in the conference championships. But in the Super Bowl, I think it'll be the Chiefs over the Bucks in a rematch, and the Chiefs will be victorious this time. So, go Chiefs.
Super Bowl rematch would be pretty interesting. I don't know how many people would be happy about that, though.
Yeah. We get stuff like that sometimes, so.
It's a strong possibility, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there you have it. Go place all your bets, because even though we all have different picks, somebody's sure to be right here. Just got to figure out who it is.
Probably won't win much, but picking all favorites.
All right, question of the week. Today, as we record this, Wednesday night, it's a big waiver week for Dynasty and potentially for some redraft leagues as well. A lot of leagues have their first waivers or maybe their final waivers run here the Wednesday before the first game on Thursday. So, fellas, that got me thinking, what's the best and worst move you've ever made on waivers? And it's hard to remember when you've been playing for so many years. So the ones I went with here were pretty recent. I'll start us off. Last year, I was fortunate enough to grab Mike Davis on waivers in most of my leagues, and that worked out pretty well. Gave running back 2, fringe running back 1 production most weeks throughout the whole year for somebody to pick up off waivers in Dynasty, especially some of the deeper Dynasty leagues. That's tough to beat. My worst one was redraft last year. I had a terrible situation. So I drafted a really strong running back group. I had Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, and Chase Edmonds were my running backs last year. Miles Sanders was out for week 1, so I was able to stash him on the IR and pick up a free agent just to fill that roster spot. James Robinson happened to be available on the free agent waiver wire, so I picked him up, stashed him there week 1. Miles Sanders was back for week 2, and I was stuck with having to cut one of those players because our league had a limit of 6 running backs. And obviously, I didn't have anybody else that was injured after week 1 to stick on the IR and replace Miles Sanders there. So I ended up debating between James Robinson and Chase Edmonds, and I ended up cutting James Robinson and keeping Chase Edmonds, which obviously went on to be a terrible decision. It was made even worse by the fact that Saquon Barkley was injured in that week 2 matchup, lost him for the year. And then the perfect guy who ended up having the running back 1 season, top 5 season that would have replaced Saquon perfectly for me was James Robinson, who I'd cut and was now on another team. So that was an all-time terrible mistake that I made.
The other team did go on to win the championship, I believe.
Yep, the guy that picked up James Robinson won it all. So terrible.
Woof.
That sucks. I remember that last year too, Levi.
Yep.
And I gave you my advice too, and I said probably Evans. So
yeah, so I texted you and our friend Colin Churchill, and I'm going to blame it on Colin. And it's funny looking back on it now. He's considered Robinson to have the floor, but Edmonds to have the ceiling. And I said it feels weird cutting a starting running back for a backup because Kenyon Drake was the starter in Arizona last year. Turns out James Robinson has a pretty high ceiling too, guys. So, Colin, I'm blaming you for this one.
Yeah, so I thought of a couple. First year Dynasty last year, Antonio Brown was available as a waiver wire pickup, so I just put all my cash towards him, and it worked out pretty good to be able to pick up somebody you can actually rely on to start when you need him. It's a pretty good waiver pickup for Dynasty. And then for my redraft in 2015, I picked up Tim Hightower right before my playoffs. I was 8-5 going into the playoffs. Tim Hightower didn't do anything. I think Ingram got hurt. He was on the Saints. And then he went on for the last 4 games of the season for the quarterfinals and finals of my Dynasty League, or not, redraft league. He had 16 points, 10 points, 30 points, 19 points. So somebody I picked up off waivers went ahead to have a 20-point average for those 4 games I needed him, which got me the title over your Levi, the Heartbreak Valentine.
Nice.
Terrible.
Well, this was tough for me to remember, so I went with some pretty recent stuff. And speaking of Trevin grabbing Antonio Brown last year in Dynasty, one of the worst moves I've ever made on waivers was dropping Antonio Brown so Trevin could get Antonio Brown in Dynasty. So that was one of my worst recent moves I made on waivers. And last year, one of my best moves, I feel, I grabbed Marquez Callaway in a couple of my leagues early last season, and they're still on my team. And I mean, he hasn't done much yet, but I mean, if you're looking to trade, if I'm looking to trade him now, I feel like I can get some pretty good value for him. So we'll see what he does, though. I kind of want to hold on to him now that Winston's the quarterback, and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, he has a really tough matchup week 1 as far as the corner he's facing. But so don't be discouraged if you're holding Marquez Callaway, especially in redraft. Give him a chance after week 1. But if he has a good game week 1, I think that bodes incredibly well for the rest of the season. So yeah, I'm excited about him this year, Brent. I think he could have wide receiver 2 type returns for you if everything works out well.
He could.
All right, well, be smarter than us or be smart like us, depending on which one we're talking about here. So, all right, let's move on to our pick-to-click competition for the year. This is coming back from last year. So in this, we each pick someone from the main slate of DFS games on Sunday who will score 15 or more points and cost $5,000 or less on DraftKings. This year we are lowering it from 20 to 15 points to hopefully help us have it be a little more interesting of a competition, because 20 points is a lot for some of these players we're having to pick from here. So again, the scoring, you get 1 point if it's somebody who costs 4,100 to 5,000, 2 if it's 3,100 to 4,000, or 3 points if it's $3,000 or less on DraftKings. And we are avoiding quarterbacks for these because there are a couple quarterbacks, actually, Zach Wilson and Teddy Bridgewater, namely. And I think there's one more.
Darnold, you said before.
Darnold, who were at 5,000 or less. So we all picked a running back, receiver, or tight end. Trevin, who did you go with?
So I figured I put a little thought into it. Being the first week, I think there's some value in getting a guy who's going to be the lead back before everybody knows they're going to be the lead back. I think when we did the AFC East preview, I said Zach Moss was my guy to buy. I think he can take over that lead back role. So this might be the week you can get him below the 5,000. If he takes over lead back for the Bills, he's going to cost a lot more later on. So I picked Zach Moss at 4,600.
I don't know, Trevin. My guy Devin Singletary is there. And I don't know. I don't know if Zach Moss is the lead back yet. I don't know.
I think he is. What worries me with him, though, is they play the Steelers this week, and that Steelers defense is tough. But it's worth a flyer here. We're first week, Trevin. I can't hate on too much. Brent, who'd you go with?
I went with Marvin Jones. He's 3,600. I can get 2 points from this, and I think he'll be their number one receiver this year. And I think Lawrence is going to look to him, especially early. So Marvin Jones, I think he'll have a big day. Maybe 6 to 8 catches, maybe close to 100 yards. He doesn't even need a touchdown if we need to get 15 points. So I like Jones for this weekend.
Solid pick, Brent, and good point about the touchdown. 6 catches for 90 yards, and you're there. He also plays the Texans, so you got to like that as well.
Yeah.
I went with Paris Campbell. I'm sticking with him. He's 3,700 this week. They have not a lot of options there with T.Y. Hilton going down. So him and Michael Pittman are looking like the best receiving options. They do play the Seahawks at home. So give me Paris Campbell. I think, his game is the short to intermediate passes, and this is PPR, so he can rack up quite a few points on those, even if he's not getting a ton of yards.
I want to see it. I want to see him have a good year, and it's very possible.
You and me both, buddy. Another thing I want to see is everybody entering our DFS contest. Go join. Hit us up on Twitter if you want to join our Fantasy Players Club League on DraftKings. Brent posts DFS contests in there throughout the season. We are going to have a contest this season with a prize that'll be to be determined, I guess. Me and Trevin will work on that over the coming weeks, and it'll be something pretty cool though, because we're going to do a season-long contest here. And I'm going to create a Google Sheet where I will track the standings throughout the year. And here's how it's going to work. For each contest, the number of points will depend on the number of entrants. So, for example, in this first week, if we have 10 people that enter the contest, the winner will get 10 points. Whoever finishes second will get 9 points. Third will get 8 points, and so on, down to whoever gets last will get 1 point. And then I'll track every NFL contest that we do throughout the season to see who the winner is at the end of the year. The winner will be the person with the most points based on the results of all those contests. So get in early and often, and good luck. And I will post updates throughout the year at the end of each week, maybe and on our Twitter account. And also I'll have the link to the Google Sheet and those updates as well that I tweet out. So there you go. And we will probably tweet links to these, or try to tweet links to these contests as we can throughout the year. The first one is tomorrow night. Brent, you have a showdown contest out there for the Thursday night game.
Yep. Get in.
They're just $1 each, so it's not high stakes. You're not going to be losing a lot if you enter all these, and it's pretty fun. Just our little group playing some DFS.
No stealing our picks, though.
All right, let's do a quick beer check. Brent, what do you got?
I got another one from Thunderhead Brewing Company, Crop Duster Mid-American IPA.
What a name for a beer. You do a lot of crop dusting, Brent?
I do. It's pretty good. I don't know if I've done this one before, but probably like a 7-8. I like it. It's pretty good.
Very nice. Got another Yingling. I think I've had this one on here before. The Lord Chesterfield Ale, the Chetty. It's a good one. We'll say tonight it's a 7.5.
I got the Summer Shandy. Obviously, I've had it before on here. Pretty tasty tonight. I'll go 8.2.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brent. Any final words before we sign off here?
No. I mean, put me on the spot, Levi. I don't know. Just enjoy watching football. Don't trust running backs. Forget about them, especially in Dynasty. Go young receivers in Dynasty. Redraft, you need running backs, so it redrafts a whole different ball game. But for Dynasty, get your stud receivers, get your stud quarterback, and fill in your running backs with
Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards and Chase Edmonds, guys like that. So have fun.
All right. Well, you heard the man. Thanks for being part of the Fantasy Players Club, everybody. We'll have a new episode for you next week that will live stream on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Until then, on behalf of Brent Hut Hikus and Trevin the Baby Maker Cremosta, this is Levi the Heartbreak Kid Valentine wishing you a great week.
See ya.
And wishing you good luck in week 1. We're back, baby.
Yes, we are.
Excited for it.
All right, Brent. I want to highlight some of my favorite Brent memories from the show.
Oh, boy.
So I'll start most recently here. Your Gio Bernard thing. I think that's what I love about you, Brent. It just kind of illustrates that you stick to. Sometimes you'll get on a little bit of a roll and you'll get a little out over your skis, but you stick with it and you own it. And if it works out, that's great. and you take a little bit of a victory lap, but if you're wrong, you own it as well. So that's one thing I've always respected about you is we can give you a lot of crap, and you don't let it bother you. You just stick with it, and if you're wrong, you're wrong, and if you're right, you're right.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun, and it is fun. So it's a lot of fun for me, and I don't know. It just I always felt Gio was a really good receiving back, and he fits in perfectly with Tom Brady, and that's why I thought that, and I'm sticking to it.
We'll have you back on in December to talk about how things are going on that deal.
Sounds good.
If we're building a Mount Rushmore of your takes, Brent, a couple that have to be up there, the Taysom Hill one. I think I laughed in your face when that happened, but you turned out to be right as a stash. So I got to give you credit where it's due.
I was just a listener during that time, and I laughed about it for weeks after you had that take. That was the craziest thing I've ever heard, and you turned out to be right, like Levi said. It was a great stash to have last year.
He's just a good football player. So
we have the opposite end of the spectrum, the Devin Singletary take, where you got the Singletary to get 1,000 yards and made a little bet on it, and it didn't work out. So that was my other one that goes up on your Mount Rushmore.
Yep, that one turned out to be a disaster. So sometimes it is.
Speaking of which, that brings us to a point I think we need to iron out before you make your exit here from the show.
Okay.
I'm leaving it up to you. Are you going to hold up your end of the bet here and do the...
Yeah.
So you're going to do the mustard or ketchup or whatever?
Yeah, unless you guys want me to do something else. I'm not a big fan of trying to make myself look like a fool on the internet, but if that's what you guys want me to do, I will certainly do it.
Well, if you have another idea, you can pitch it here now, Brent.
Oh, jeez. Again, you put me on the spot, Levi.
Well, Brent, what do you remember? We made this bet, and I gave you the entire offseason to pay up. And here we are on the eve of the first game. I'm not putting you on the spot here.
I know. Well, I mean, I planned on doing it. So,
okay.
I mean, unless you guys come up with something better and help promote the show. I mean, I did go all the way to that. Was that Tour de France? I did that to help promote the show. So, you got to give me credit for that. But yeah, I'll get ketchup squirted in my face, I guess. So, and
if you can sleep on, you have until game time tomorrow. So if you come up with a better idea,
okay,
before then, you can let us know, and we'll either veto it or approve it. But are you gonna try to get it done by then to meet the deadline or not?
No, I don't think I can get it done by tomorrow because DeVay would be the one that'd have to do it. I'm sure she'd like to do it. She's probably wouldn't be a fan to have like a picture or video on the website, but I can maybe talk her into it. But
she doesn't have to be on camera. She doesn't want to.
Maybe I can have her do it this weekend or something.
So are you committing to maybe by the time kickoff on Sunday rolls around? Is that where we're at?
That sounds better because she'll be at North Platte tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to leave the ball in your court now. Either you do that, or if you come up with an idea, you let us know and we'll give you some feedback.
Okay.
And that's your, I think, final thing for the show that we still have outstanding. Trevin, any memories?
Still have outstanding.
Trevin, any memories of Brent that stick out
the
to
cops
you?
Coming after him tomorrow. No, you nailed it all. One of my favorite takes of Brent. It's been a lot of fun with you, Brent. I'm going to miss you being on the show.
Yeah, I'm going to miss you guys too. I'll still text you guys. I'll still give Trevin crap after Raiders lose every week.
Well, you don't have to do that too often.
We'll see about that.
Might have to get an extra texting plan for that. Brett, any favorite memories from your time that you want to highlight?
I don't know. I just like talking football, and I can do this upon hours. So especially if you get a few beers in me, I can definitely talk about it for hours. I don't know. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't want to completely close the door. I mean, if you guys want to have me back next year, I'd probably join in, but I mean that's up to you guys. It wouldn't hurt my feelings either way. So
At a minimum, you're coming back as a guest sometimes.
yeah, sounds good.
I haven't
So-
talked to Levi about it, but I'd say whenever you have an open week that you want to jump on, we'd be more than willing to have you on.
Okay,
Absolutely.
sounds good. Definitely for the NFL draft. That was fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Anytime
Yeah.
you want to hop on, you just let us know.
Okay, and if I ever see you guys streaming online, I'll definitely throw some comments in there.
We need
Like-
some.
I'm just hearing some of Trevin's takes sometimes about Kyle Pitts and his Raiders players, and I don't know. I'll have to give you guys some crap, but it'll be fun.
Can't wait to drag your ass back on after Pitts explodes this year.
Can't wait to talk to you guys after Gio gets all of his catches, and maybe this year will be the year and Singletary gets 1,000 yards. That was just a year off.
Oh my gosh. There's no way.
If Gio has his 68 catches, I'm quitting the show.
But it'll
Was
just
it
be renamed.
68?
Yep. For a game.
He'll do
We'll
it.
just
I feel pretty confident about it.
We'll have to rename it the Brent Show if that happens.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun, buddy. It was a pleasure to finally meet you in person last week. Watch the awesome Florida State Notre Dame game.
I didn't know you
Uh,
guys were hanging out last week. I didn't know you made
Yeah.
it work.
Yep,
Nice.
I went over to Brent's place. We watched the game. Awesome game.
was a good one.
Talked quite a bit of football. Brent's got a sweet setup for all this football that's starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. Well, Brent, I'll let you sign us off here.
See ya. I don't know. Good luck next week, guys, and feel free to shoot us some questions on Twitter. I'll gladly answer. Levi will gladly answer. Trevin will do his best on giving his input. It was a fun week of college football last weekend. That was some really good games. So
Yep.
we will sign off on these guys. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.